we go. All right, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Minions of the Zoo 1585. I'm your host, Johnny Hellcat. With me today are Minions Sanguine.
Good evening, all.
And Terry Diamantis.
Hello.
How you guys doing today?
Yeah, I'm alright.
I'm doing grand. I'm just whipping up a large batch of colcannon. I'm about to pull the corned beef out and slice it up, and then plate up my colcannon corned beef and pour Guinness and finger or two of Jameson out for myself as well.
I do like Guinness. It's one of those one and done beers though. Like I can only tolerate one.
Oh yeah, for a lot of people it's just too heavy, which is why some people have dubbed it liquid bread.
I've heard that. I've heard people call it that.
But for me, I'm not sure if it's just the Irish portion of myself or if it's the insane tolerance of the rest of me. But I can just sit down and drink Guinness for a good long while if I so wanted. In fact, that was the beer that I first did the experiment to see, can I get drunk off beers with? And the answer was no. No, I cannot.
I've heard you say that before, that beer is not enough. It's not strong enough.
Yep. Yeah. Sat down with 2 24-packs of Guinness in order to test that, and hit stomach capacity, let enough leave my stomach that I could drink another, hit stomach capacity the entire time, taking breathalyzers to see, and yeah, I didn't even hit tipsy, and then I got progressively lower blood alcohol contents while drinking an entire night. It was very strange.
I don't like beer, or basically anything where I can taste the alcohol. So if I want to drink, which I don't, but when I did want to drink, I had
really
to
drink drunk.
Well, I thought I had to sort of fit in, so that's why I was drinking. I never actually liked it, but the only way I could was drown it in orange juice.
Yep.
I was definitely one of the. I'm a mixed. I'm a sweet drink kind of guy.
Another girly drink drunk.
Like, as they call them, bitch beers.
Yep.
Well, a shot of vodka and enough orange juice so that I can't actually taste that there's vodka in the glass. That'll do it for me. I can drink that.
See, I have long been of the opinion that the only thing that vodka is fit for is cleaning cast iron pans.
Well, it seems to be the one with the least taste to it, I guess. The one that least interferes with the taste of the orange juice. So that makes it good. That's all I need. I want something that won't make the orange juice taste too much different from normal orange juice.
Yeah, that is the polar opposite of me. I like alcohols that have a very pronounced flavor of their own. So whiskeys, scotches, I found a good dark rum that I really love as well. Though the good dark rum that I found has probably one of the most unfortunate names that I've ever heard. It is Mount Gay Black Barrel.
Oh boy.
So, yeah, unfortunate name for that rum, but really good flavor to it.
Mount Jussie.
Yeah.
I believe that's what his celly's currently doing.
Didn't he get released? I haven't been following it, but I thought he got.
I know they've been talking about him being released. I don't know if it's officially happened.
Yeah, I
Okay.
don't know if it has happened. Last I heard, there were a bunch of people requesting his release, but I hadn't heard that he had been released. And if he has, that's further abrogation of justice in my mind.
Let's see if it's in my playlist. Because I thought I saw a Lotus Eaters video talking about it. Like, I haven't seen the video. I saw that there was a video talking about it.
Yeah, like I said, I've seen videos talking about how there's a number of different groups that are currently petitioning for him to be released. But I haven't heard that he has been.
Okay. Well, hopefully they don't release him, because I think he does, in fact, deserve to be in prison.
Okay, so it's showing here he has been released.
Fuck.
While the appeal process is underway.
Fuck that. Keep his ass in prison. And if they are doing it where he's released while the appeal's in process, then the moment that the first appeal finishes, he goes back in prison. Any time that he was released for needs to be tacked back on.
You're working under the presumption of a functioning justice system. This is more of a Jussie system. This is going to be like he just gets what he wants.
No. If it was a Jussie system, then it would be pushing back more.
He's capital black and lowercase gay. We see how it is.
What the fuck? And yeah, that's the problem, Assassin, that he's only being released, and this is only being humored because he has connections. The proper response would be, he's in prison. It should be longer than the 5-month time frame that they currently have him slated to be in prison for. And he should just be stuck there until his sentence is over. Fuck good behavior, because this isn't... It's one thing when you're dealing with a crime where good behavior makes sense, where the issue was that they were acting out and thus good behavior is a sign that they've kind of amended their ways.
Yeah.
It's another thing when it's, this person's a con man and a charlatan, but he's been really nice while in prison.
Yeah, because he's trying to con you into letting him out.
Yeah, that's kind of the defining feature of a con man and a charlatan. They're really nice.
In chat, Clippers United was making fun of the way I say beer. So,
he seems like such a nice guy.
Yeah.
It's why when I was a corrections officer, there were certain things that every correction officer looks out for when it comes to how other correction officers are referring to offenders. And one of them is, if someone starts talking about how, well, so-and-so's a really nice guy, that's a warning sign immediately.
Yes, it is. I've never been anywhere near a prison, and I know that's a warning sign.
Yep. And that's one of the reasons why. Whenever I watch one of Scribe's TED Talk videos, and it's someone who worked in the corrections system, half of them I'm going, okay, this person either fucked an offender, is currently fucking an offender, or has an offender that they're planning on fucking.
Because I would say that's a very safe assumption.
There's a penis going somewhere.
Goddamn, all of them are like, you have to understand that these are really nice guys that were just in a bad... No, the fuck they aren't. You have to understand these are criminals. These are criminals that have nothing to do other than work out, go to their job if they were able to apply and get a job, which, by the way, that's one thing that pisses me off constantly as well. there's the cutout for slavery's okay as long as people are in prison. Yeah, but we aren't talking about 1920s Folsom Prison rock yard. We're talking most states working in prison is you apply for a job in prison. You have to meet the requirements for applying for the job in prison. When you apply for the job, if you get the job, you're paid a wage for the time that you work. You're also able to acquire skills. This can be, depending on the prison, a whole host of different things. We had people in prison that were learning IT skills. We had people learning welding. We had people learning woodwork and carpentry and shit like that. So
I think they should go back to breaking rocks. That was a proper prison work.
I am fairly in agreement with that as well. But the idea that, see, this is just modern day slavery. No, you aren't working in a field, motherfucker. You're applying for a job, and then when you get the job, you get paid. This isn't slavery. This is you're paid to do a job that you applied for, that you had to opt into getting the job. That's not slavery.
Okay, so please tell me that one of the available jobs is in fact picking cotton.
Unfortunately, it is not, and even more unfortunate. So the prison that I worked at back decades ago actually had a, effectively, prison farm because it had a greenhouse on the grounds. It was something that only the minimum security offenders could get a job at, but they could get a job growing food. All the food that was made in the greenhouse would then end up in the prison kitchen. So it made it so that we would have the ability for the prison to feed itself rather than buying in everything that we had to feed the offenders.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like a really good idea, right? Then we closed down the prison farm. Probably because someone was saying it was too much like slavery, despite it, again, being a job that you have to apply to, and then if you get the job, you work the job, just like any fucking job in existence in the civilian world.
See, no, this is eye-opening because I didn't realize that the slaves actually applied to be slaves back in the bad old days. No, I don't think there's a problem with slavery anymore. I think we find to bring it back.
Yeah, if this is modern day slavery is
pretty cool.
Not at all slavery.
No.
I gotta say, I did find. Sorry to interrupt, but I did find a meme that I gotta say is fucking hilarious.
Oh, I saw that.
Nice.
It's
This is native.
No, you remind me. There's some board game. I forget which one, but like one of the cards in the game is a slave because of the time that the game was set in. That was like it made sense that you would have slaves. And then there was this review channel, Shut Up and Sit Down, and they were like, we need to address the slave card. It's like, no, you really don't. But then they went on this like 5-minute lecture about how inappropriate it was, and we need to do better as an industry. Like, shut the fuck up.
Shut the fuck up. You have a slave card because you're dealing with a game that's set in the Middle Ages or earlier, probably, from the sounds of it.
I think it might have been
Egypt,
like ancient Egypt or something. I forget, but I
you mean one of the civilizations that damn near a defining feature was, they had a fuck ton of slaves.
Yeah. I'm not 100%, but I think it was ancient Egypt. And one of the cards was slaves because they had those back then.
And they had a fuck ton of them. It's kind of like having a game set in the Middle Ages and going, well, this has a serf's card. Isn't that a bit
problematic?
Problematic, having a serf's card in a game set in the Middle Ages? Yes, it's set in the Middle Ages, you fuck.
And also, just having a slave card isn't endorsing slavery. Like,
Yep.
it would be different if they were like, in the instruction book, they had a caption and this is where black people belong. If they did that, then fine, take issue with the game. That makes sense.
Yep.
But just having a card named slave because it is thematically appropriate for the game is not endorsing slavery.
Yep. Yeah, it's infuriating how much they want to bitch and moan about shit like that. And there's a bunch of games that should have versions of slaves in them that don't always. Like, I'm not 100% sure. Have either of you played the Assassin's Creed Valhalla?
No.
Not that one, no.
Okay, because I can't remember if that game actually has thralls in it. Which, do you guys happen to know what thralls are?
Only in the context of, I think it was Blood Bowl, where the vampires could, enthrall, like, minions.
So that
kind of
shares an origin. Yep, it is. A thrall is a Norse slave.
Okay.
So when someone was a thrall to the Norse, it meant that they were a slave. And being enthralled, the reason why it means that you become under the control of someone else is because if you were enthralled, it meant that you became a slave.
Right, that makes sense. But it is interesting because to
I was
be
always wondering
enthralled...
about that. I love hearing that origin.
No, but like the word like to be enthralled doesn't have the same negative connotation in today's world. Like you might say a really captivating story, like I was enthralled, whereas you wouldn't say I was enslaved.
Well, the thing is that you could. It's just that people would look at you strange, even though it would have the same meaning. It's kind of like how captive. I was held captive by the beauty of that song.
Yeah. Captivating is usually a good, a positive term.
Yep. Clearly, it's all just anti-Slavic sentiment that makes it so that slave is looked down so...
Yeah, because to be enthralled does technically have the same meaning. It's saying that you couldn't remove yourself because you were so fascinated by what was happening that it practically held you captive. But that's not what people think. Like when they hear enthralling or captivating, they just mean really cool, really really good. That's all they really think of it as meaning.
Yeah, and that's just due to how people use the word. It's nothing to do with the actual definition of the word, because again, enthrall and enslave mean the exact same thing. It is a connotative difference rather than a denotative difference.
Yes. It's the same how no one uses petrified to mean turned to stone anymore.
Yep.
Even though that's what it means, you're frozen like a statue when you're so scared that you're petrified.
Exactly.
But people just think it means scared.
Yep.
Yeah, it's all because of I will survive. Because at first she was afraid. She was petrified.
But yeah, there's a lot of words that people kind of lose track of what the fuck they mean and how they came to be. Like, I somewhat shill of my food Twitter, and just something that I ended up talking about today on it, is you've probably noticed that there's a lot of different types of whiskey around the world, right? You have
Yeah.
Irish whiskeys, you have Scottish whiskeys, you have American, Canadian, Japanese. And you've probably noticed that it keeps on being spelled two different ways.
I have noticed that too.
Whiskey with an E and whiskey without an E. Do either of you know why some are spelled with and why some are spelled without?
There's an ecstasy tab in all the ones that have E in it.
Not quite, though. They do tend to leaven the spirits if you have the correct proportion of it. So
But is it just regional?
it is somewhat regional. So there's two effectively origins of whiskey. There's Irish whiskeys and there's Scottish whiskeys. There's a little bit of debate as to which one came first. I think the current school of thought is that Scottish whiskeys came first. And Scottish whiskeys are always without an E. So Scotches lack E if you're saying a Scotch whiskey. Then you have the Irish whiskeys, which, if you go for the Scottish whiskeys were the first, the Irish whiskeys, in order to differentiate, added an E so that they became whiskey. So you'd be able to tell just by looking at a bottle whether this was a Scottish whiskey or an Irish whiskey.
Did you say there's a T in it? As in the TEA?
An E.
They put the letter E in the name to separate. Okay.
To
I thought you said they put
differentiate.
T in it. That's got to taste weird.
Oh, now, there's the difference between the styles is different than that. So Scotches are peated when they're being dried. So you malt the barley and then you dry the malted barley before you then process it and make the alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
So in Scotches, they peat the barley in order to dry it. So that means they build a peat fire and then they get it hot but smoking, no longer flaming. And they cook the moisture out of the barley slowly by smoking it. So that's the reason why Scotches have that very distinct smoky flavor.
I'll take your word for that. I don't drink Scotch.
The more peated a Scotch, the smokier the flavor. So, for instance, the style of whiskey that tends to be the smokiest are Islay Scotches. They are very heavily peated. Those are the ones that people that don't like them will often say that they taste like sucking on campfire ashes. And it's due to the amount of smoky flavor in the Scotch.
I think it was Emo Phillips had a joke where he's saying, oh no, it wasn't him, it was someone else. They were saying, they say kissing a smoker is like licking an ashtray. So he started licking all the ashtrays because he was lonely.
Yep. And then you have Irish whiskeys, which aren't peated at all. And you spelled bourbon wrong, by the way.
I know.
So, no, but that's like when a monkey makes it.
When you're talking about Irish whiskeys don't go for a peating. They don't smoke their barley at all. They tend to just make a very hot room and lay out the barley in a thin layer and keep the heat high in that room without smoke. So you don't really get a strong smokiness from Irish whiskeys. Any smokiness that you get from an Irish whiskey tends to be from the charring of the barrel that it's aged in.
Isn't it B-O-U?
Then it's bourbon is B-O-U-R
B-O-N.
B-O-N.
Okay, I put the U in the wrong spot then.
Yep. All right, you put the U in the wrong spot and you failed to put an O in the right spot.
I think bourbon is just a new kind of drink, and I like saying it.
But
Bourbon.
that's the difference between those two. And then also Irish whiskeys tend to be triple distilled, Scotches tend to be double distilled, and some Americans and some Canadian tend to be single distilled.
So go all out, quadruple distill it.
Oh, you can do quadruple distilling, and that would mean that you have a higher purity of the alcohol. So part of me is really tempted to go into the tangent as to the multiple distilling and what that does.
I think Jack Gunsky would greatly appreciate that, so I encourage you to do so.
Fair enough, if I'm being encouraged. Then...
Well, he's complaining about you talking about this one, so I think you can tell me even more if you went on a tangent.
So this is now going to be a second-degree tangent of the original point. So the second-degree tangent is every time that you distill, so distillation is the controlled evaporation in various stages of a mixture of different liquids. So you can do this with a bunch of liquids. In the case of alcohol, you're trying to distill, when you're producing alcohol, you produce a certain percent of the alcohol will be methanol. A certain percent will be ethanol, a certain percent will be various other alls, and then you'll have water. So you want to get rid of the methanol, because if you have methanol and you have too much methanol in your alcohol, it damages your optic nerve and causes a lot of other issues throughout the body, because methanol is broken down into effectively formaldehyde.
Oh.
And then that formaldehyde gets to circle your body until it's broken down into another substance, which is also poisonous.
Isn't that the way they usually have you kill off the first? I'm not sure about the amount, but you dispose
the
of
first distillate. Yeah, so when you're distilling the alcohol, you have the substance with the lowest boiling point is methanol. Of those three main categories, the ethanol and water have higher boiling points. But the weird thing about this is, you know how when you add salt to water, it increases the boiling temperature?
I've heard of that. I wouldn't have known if you hadn't just said it, but I've heard it mentioned.
So that's one of the reasons why you salt water when you're about to boil pasta or potatoes or anything like that, because it actually increases the temperature at which water boils. It also increases the temperature at which water freezes, which is why you salt frozen streets.
Okay.
In order to melt the water, let it run off, and then you have a clear road. So by dissolving solids within water, you increase the freezing temperature and you increase the boiling temperature. By mixing liquids with different boiling points, you drag the temperature down for the higher boiling temperature liquids. So I can't remember methanol's boiling point. It's fairly low. I know that for ethanol, it's, because I'm talking to you, Terry, I'll use metric. It is 70 C for the boiling point of pure ethanol.
Okay.
If I remember correctly.
That's the methanol's boiling point. Oh, no, ethanol. That's 173.1 or 78.37.
Oh, 78. Okay. So 78 degrees C for methanol.
Oh, shit. I just found it too.
Fantastic.
151 or 66 C.
Okay.
So methanol has a much lower boiling point than ethanol has a much lower boiling point than water. So if it worked the way that it sounds like it should, before you realize that as you mix these different compounds, it changes the boiling point of all the other ones, it sounds like you would be able to go, oh, so brilliant, I'm making alcohol, so I'll raise the alcohol's temperature to that 60 some degree C for the methanol boiling point, and I'll just hold it at that temperature for an extended period of time. And then eventually I'll boil off all the methanol, and all the ethanol will still be there, and all the water will still be there. So then I'll raise the temperature up to that ethanol boiling point, and I'll just hold it there until I'm no longer getting anything out the spout, because it'll just boil off all the ethanol, and then I'll just be left with just the water. But that isn't how it works.
All right.
What happens is that the temperatures get skewed by the other substances in. So as you're boiling your mixture of these three chemicals, the methanol, ethanol, and water, once you start boiling and you start getting your methanol off, you're actually getting mostly methanol, some ethanol, and some water. As you continue boiling it, and as the temperature increases, the amount of methanol percentage-wise decreases, the amount of ethanol percentage-wise increases, and the amount of water percentage-wise increases. So what you end up doing is you do your first distillation. You're able to get most of the methanol out in that first bit that you then cast off, because you either sell it as methanol to a laboratory or someone that needs methanol, or you just get rid of it because you have no fucking use for it. It will.
Or you sell it on the streets as meth, and you just let them fill in the blank incorrectly.
Yeah, it's a different sort of meth with us. So
yeah,
then you have...
You don't tell them that. They're druggies. They won't know.
Then you have your ethanol will start being the highest in proportion at a certain point. And this is when you want to start collecting, when it's mainly ethanol coming out. And as that continues boiling, you'll still have a small amount of methanol coming out, but you'll have a large amount of ethanol. And then as it goes, the amount of ethanol percentage-wise will decrease, and the amount of water percentage-wise will increase. So you want to get as much of the ethanol as you can while getting as little of the water as you can. So this is the first distillation. Then, if you do a second distillation, you take that quanta, that section that you grabbed the first time, and you start, or your distillate, and you start distilling from your distillate from the first run, which that still has a certain percent of it is methanol, a certain percent of it is ethanol, and a certain percent of it is water, right? So, again, as it starts to boil, you end up with methanol coming out in high percentage with lower percentages of everything else to start. Then it starts to shift towards ethanol coming out in high percentage and a very low percent of methanol and a somewhat low percent of water. And then it shifts towards very high percent of water and very low of the other two. So when you do that second run, you end up with more ethanol and less water and methanol.
Okay.
When you do a third run, you end up with even more, or not more as in volume more, but more as in percentage.
Yeah.
You end up with a higher percent of ethanol from your third distillation. And then you can do a fourth distillation. You end up with an even higher percent. And a fifth, then you end up with a higher percentage. But each time you're losing volume of what you're getting. So there's a trade-off between that. Like I said, scotches are twice distilled normally. Irish whiskeys are thrice distilled normally. And American are either once or twice distilled for the most part. Same with Canadian, either once or twice distilled. So going back to the first degree tangent, when I was talking about the two different spellings of whiskey. So you have the Irish ones are E's, the Scottish ones are without E's.
Right.
Then you have a bunch of whiskey producers from both Ireland and Scotland that end up fucking off around the world. But they still produce They're whiskey. So what you now have is you have, going back to the initial topic, all the different whiskeys from around the world. The American whiskeys, the Canadian whiskeys, the Japanese whiskeys. Depending on what family they originated from, either the Irish family of whiskeys or the Scottish family of whiskeys, they keep that naming system.
That makes sense.
So Japanese whiskeys are predominantly Scottish whiskeys, so they don't have an E in the name. American whiskeys are predominantly Irish whiskeys, so they do have an E in the name, though you can find American whiskeys that don't have an E because they are a Scottish-style whiskey just made in America. But then you also have the annoying situation of sometimes Americans, as we all know, can be a bit stupid. As an American, I freely admit, sometimes we can be a bit stupid. So you have the confusing situation of you have certain companies that, because the most common whiskeys early on in the history of American whiskey production were Irish whiskeys, the default became with an E. So you currently have some companies that are producing whiskeys without an E, and all they produce are whiskeys without an E. But the name of the company that produces these whiskeys without an E has an E in the word whiskey in the name for the company.
Consistency.
So,
and it was just
I was gonna say,
because
so
it was the most common.
So Irish has the E.
Irish has the E.
Scottish has the no E.
No E.
Yes.
And Canadian has the A.
Only if someone is really bad at spelling.
Whiskey.
This guy.
God damn it, that just reminded me of something from some black guy, Chris Ray-Gun, and Chris Ray-Gun's roommate.
Todd Sweeney.
Todd Sweeney from ages ago, where some black guy said, man, he threw a real soft A in that word. And Tom Sweeney immediately chimed in with, is there a hard A? What the fuck's a hard A? What's up, my niggays?
Frosted is winding up Gunsky, saying, I couldn't follow. Can you go back to the E part?
Mm-hmm.
And Jack is screaming that he doesn't care.
So I did happen to find a video that, I mean, it was part of a thread that is moderately irrelevant. So, but the fact that this video exists is absolutely hilarious. Let me see if I can pull this up here. Oh, let me see if I can share the audio. Chrome tab. Chrome tab. Okay. Let me know if you can hear it.
Nope.
Oh, that's because it's muted. There we go.
We just gotta.
Can you hear that?
Yeah, I heard that.
Okay.
I heard it.
I don't know why, but every time I watch this, and I even showed my wife and just died still. But, yeah.
We just got a letter. Wonder who it's from.
Shut up, bitch! Oh my God!
Like that. I don't know. It's stupid, and I love it.
Yeah.
Like,
Shut up, bitch.
So, given that it is St. Paddy's Day, why don't you do anything for St. Paddy's?
not die.
Good choice.
Always better than the alternative.
Yeah. Yeah, typically I think usually I'll just drink a Guinness unless I go actually go to the bar. But lately it's just been, yep, I'm gonna Irish it up with a Guinness and call it good for the next few months of not drinking anything.
Fair enough. What about you, Terry?
Well, see, for me, St. Paddy's Day was yesterday, so I spent it completely unaware that it was St. Patrick's Day. But I spent today going, I guess it was St. Patrick's Day yesterday.
Fair enough. Of course, made a good meal for it. I'm just plating it up right now. In fact,
Is it just potatoes?
I did corned beef, which, do you guys know the origin of the corned beef on St. Paddy's Day?
Is that what they ate instead of potatoes when the famine was on?
No, in fact, corned beef has absolutely fuck all to do with St. Paddy's Day in Ireland.
Oh, okay.
It was an American tradition that then spread to a large part of the rest of the world from America, despite St. Paddy's Day, of course, being an Irish holiday. An American food tradition took over. It was Irish immigrants ended up living real close to Jewish immigrants, and Jewish immigrants ate a lot of corned beef. The Irish went, that's pretty good. We can't really get what we normally eat for St. Paddy's Day. Might as well make it corned beef. So they started doing corned beef and cabbage.
Okay.
That one's actually a short one, and he's still complaining.
Yeah, he does that a lot.
Jack is just so against learning anything that even if it can be done quickly, he still doesn't want it.
It goes against his narrative.
You don't even have to read to get this information. This is given freely in the spoken word.
Let's see. Yeah, I've been preoccupied with. There's a board game called Smash Up, which sadly I can't play because you need like other people. But well, it's a competitive game and it's very hard to compete against yourself.
I get that, but it's still funny.
But it is very interesting to see like people talking about it on YouTube. So I've been, watching videos on that, and because the idea is you've got a whole bunch of factions, but you pick two of them and sort of combine them for your deck for that game. And so I'm far more interested in like looking at the card lists and trying to find like synergies and good pairings, and watching people talking about that, because the game
trying
itself
to figure out the most gloriously broken combos.
Yeah, and like the game itself is like it's fine, it's fun, but it's it's not the main appeal. The main appeal is like overanalyzing the card list and seeing what kind of just insane nonsense you can find.
Yeah, like with any good deck builder.
Well, it's not a deck builder because each faction has a set deck. So if you choose the robots, you get the same 20 robot cards every time.
Okay.
And so, you're more picking good combinations. You're not developing your deck as you play.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like deck builders. Deck builders are probably my favorite type of board game.
Yeah, because you are always trying to figure out, okay, what is the most broken combo that I can manage to pull off with this? Yes.
It all started with a game called Legendary. That was my first deck builder. And it's very, very basic deck builder, but it's based on Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
And so most of the Marvel characters that people talk about, I only know them because of that game.
Nice.
So like people are talking about Guardians of the Galaxy because of the movie. I'm like, oh yeah, the raccoon guy from the game, right?
Yeah, he had a +4 to this and a -3 to that.
Yeah, exactly.
And good God, if you got him and Spider-Man on the same team, woo!
But
kind of looking at you like, what the fuck?
That was actually one of the complaints people had about the game is you're making a team of superheroes, you're not playing as any particular one. So you can't be Spider-Man. You're the guy that is recruiting the heroes to fight the villain.
That's fun.
That I liked it. I thought it was a cool idea, but a lot of people said, "No, I want to be Captain America. I want to be Spider-Man." It's like, well, you can't in this game.
Which one?
Goddamn, Frosted Glass is just out for Jack's suicide tonight. But yeah, that games like that are fun, and I don't get why everyone feels the need to be the main hero. No, sometimes just being the person who thinks through the shit is fun as hell.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, so each superhero has like, I think it's 10 different cards, but you like they're all shuffled together, and there's like 5 or 6 available at any time that you can like buy to add to your deck.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, even if you wanted like an all Thor deck, you couldn't do it because they're all shuffled together. You might not see the 4 cards that you want. You've got to kind of improvise, do it based on what you can see in the like I guess the card shop where you're recruiting heroes from.
Yeah, it's always fun having to think up how to make a good deck and how to have the right combination for the right moment.
And one of the things I like is one of the factions in Smash Up is the Aliens, and their whole gimmick is they return cards to hand. And most people would think that you use that against the opponent, which mostly you do. But there's a lot of your own cards. Like if you pick a good partner faction, there's like, oh wait, I could bounce that back to my own hand and play it again and get like twice the benefit. And that's the kind of stuff that I like looking into. Like, oh well, that would be perfect for the Aliens. I'm going to combine them and get this really powerful effect twice. So, and then
that was one of my favorite things when I was in high school and I got into playing Magic for a while. Magic decks just coming up with things that just become retarded in the most interesting manners. Like I had a deck that I made that I called the Sack deck because 90% of the deck was just there to die horrendously.
One of my favorite Magic the Gathering decks is Zero Land. Like every card in it, there's I forget what it was called, but there was a mechanic where you could cast spells not with mana but by milling the top of your deck. I forget what they called it, but the entire deck was just it mills itself into the graveyard and then like either plays cards through that mechanic or revives them from the graveyard. And there's zero land in the entire deck. And I thought that is just whoever came up with that is just genius because like that is so creative.
Yeah, for my black sack deck that I had, it was literally just like, okay, either every time I play a card, one of your cards dies, or one of my cards dies, or a bunch of our cards both go into the graveyard. Let's have fun. Either you're going to deck out, I'm going to deck out, or I'm going to get something scary out onto the field because there's now a lot of sons of bitches in the graveyard.
I just want to clarify something because Devil Fruit Zero kind of brought it up. There's a difference between games like Magic the Gathering and deck building games.
Oh yeah, I know.
No, but Devil Fruit Zero, I feel like I should address it. Deck building games, the game is to build the deck. Games like Magic, you build the deck and then you play the game. So in a deck building game, all the players start with the same shitty deck. It's like 10 really, really bad cards. But those cards allow you to buy new cards that you can add to your deck as the game progresses. That is a deck building game. Stuff like Pokemon and Magic the Gathering, they're like collectible card games, I think is the term for those. They're very, very different, just to clarify.
Probably one of the deck builders that most people are familiar with is Munchkin.
I don't think is Munchkin a deck builder. I wouldn't have thought so.
I would categorize it. It's slightly different, but I'd still categorize it as kind of deck building because it.
Yes, Devil Fruit Zero. Dominion is the first deck builder that like became famous. That is the one they're all based on.
But I would consider it kind of like a subcategory of deck builders because you're still collecting cards in order to come up with combinations that are all part of the game itself. You aren't getting them from outside the game and coming into them, or coming into the game with those already in your.
I don't know. I don't think you have your own personal deck that you have. I think isn't there like a communal deck that you're drawing from, and maybe it's more like hand management where you're trying to like play the right cards at the I don't know. It never felt like a deck builder to me.
Fair enough. Like I said, to me, it would be a subsection, but I can see the argument for saying, yeah, it doesn't feel like a deck builder to me, and saying that it's a different related category, effectively.
Yeah. I own many deck builders. Fortunately, most of them are cooperative, so I just have to play multiple hands rather than just staring at the cards and pondering. Because I can do that on a wiki. I don't need to buy the game to do that. What's that?
Rather than just staring at the cards and pondering what you would do if you had a friend.
Well, first of all, I don't actually know anyone anywhere near me. The closest thing the closest person that I would consider a friend is like Pete, and he's in another state. So there's no. I don't think I know anyone in Sydney. It's pretty sad. But no, I mean, if all I want to do is look at the cards, I can just go to the wiki. I don't really need to buy the game.
Yeah, just look up the complete collection and go, okay, these are what the cards are. How would I do things?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I've been doing with Smash Up. I was just sort of like, okay, aliens and dinosaurs, do they synergize? Not even a little bit. Okay. Aliens and ninjas, what can I do with that?
You mean you can't get an alien dino deck going?
Well, the dinosaurs only really do one thing, which is be big. So they don't really synergize with much of anything. Like the dinosaurs are larger monsters than in most other decks, but their only real ability is to make things even bigger. So unless there's something that triggers off its having a lot of power, which, I mean, there's a little bit of that, but the dinos are not very synergistic. They're more just... You give them to the newbies because they're very simple to understand.
Mm-hmm. And
it's a fun game.
Rewriting the poll again.
Oh, is he?
Whiskey or whiskey?
I always say it with an E. Whiskey with no E looks wrong to me.
See, for me, I like both whiskeys and whiskeys, so I am like a big pilot.
I've always spelled it with an E, so but then again, I'm an Irish whiskey drinker.
I think Jack is requesting that you re-explain the difference.
That was not a misadventure. That was a properly done adventure.
That was a purposely done adventure.
It was not a mistake that I talked about whiskey and whiskey. Nor did I have any missteps in my talk about whiskey and whiskey. So all of it went to plan.
I just saw the things that Gunsky tagged me in on Twitter, which is Steve Martin telling, I think it's John Candy, stories are better when they have a point.
Mm-hmm.
And the kindergarten cop, shut up. It's just Arnie shouting.
The thing is, it did have a point. It had the point of teaching you guys the difference between whiskey and whiskey.
I know that. Gunsky is the one who's confused. But,
Do I need to break it down in simpler terms, Dunsky?
I think that's the problem. He didn't understand it. It was over his head.
Let's just press rewind on the tape and slowly explain it again.
So you see, this is actually the second degree tangent because we were already on the first degree tangent. So in the second degree tangent, that was rewinding and getting back to the right spot, right? Or did we need to go back a bit further and go to the first degree tangent before we got to the second degree tangent, so that then we could finish off the second degree tangent, then finish off the first degree tangent, then finish off the original point?
Look, I think I know the perfect solution. Hello, welcome to Minions of the Zoo. Johnny is your host. This is Minions of the Zoo 1585. Johnny, how are you?
not too bad. Didn't you say you had something to explain about whiskey and whiskey there, Sanguine?
Yes, you might have noticed when you're looking at the liquor store that you see whiskey sometimes spelled with an E, sometimes not spelled with an E, and you can find whiskeys from all around the world. You can find American whiskeys, Canadian whiskeys, Japanese whiskeys, Scotch and Irish whiskeys, as well as I think I've seen an Indian whiskey once or twice. They're very strange and very odd. I haven't had an Indian whiskey, but you see, the reason behind the E or no E is because there's two common origins of all the families of whiskey.
I think someone's at the door, Johnny. That bell keeps ringing.
That's my son's glucometer.
Ah.
And it's across the room, and I don't feel like getting up and chasing after it.
No, that's fine. It kept ringing, so I thought I'd make a joke about it.
They'll go away soon enough.
When your kid goes into like diabetic shock or something, is like
that is kind of what it sounded like.
No, that is the high. That's the high alarm. The low alarm is the one we have to worry about.
Okay.
Or the super high alarm.
Well, if the dog starts barking, then we'll know that it's really high.
Or if suddenly Jack's or not Jack. God damn it! I'm doing it again. If suddenly Johnny's laugh changes into the classic stoner laugh, then we know that he suddenly got the really high alarm.
Yeah.
I got you, man.
If you can talk to Adam and make sense of it, then that's really, really high.
See, that's the thing. Adam still does not have the stereotypical stoner laugh, which I am amazed by, because you know the laugh I'm talking about when I say stereotypical stoner laugh, right?
I don't hang around stoners, but I think I've got a rough idea.
Have you ever seen Pineapple Express?
No.
Okay, because if you had, then you knew exactly the laugh I meant, because that is the only laugh in that entire fucking movie. But
pretty much Seth Rogen's laugh the entire movie.
Yeah,
Seth Rogen's laugh is the stereotypical stoner laugh. And for all the people that say weed doesn't have any negative long-term side effects, why is it that pretty much every stoner gets that same fucking laugh? If it was one or two, I could go, okay, yeah, they did something else that gave them the laugh. But no, pretty much every single one, if they imbibe enough, or not imbibe because imbibe means to drink, if they inhale enough, they end up with that laugh at some point in their life. Don't tell me it doesn't do anything to your mind if it makes your laugh default to that. What the fuck?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why anyone would want to get high. I've tried it once. It was really not for me. Um,
I
I
was
was in
really
Amsterdam.
expecting out of nowhere for you to comment about, yeah, it turns out that I just can't deal with elevation.
I was in Amsterdam, and it seemed like a wasted trip if I didn't try marijuana at least once. Um, I don't see the big deal. I don't see why people enjoy it, but I, I mean, you have fun with it if that's your thing. It's just I don't see the appeal myself.
Yeah. I've never figured out the appeal of lighting a plant and shoving the other end in my mouth. That goes for cigarettes, that goes for marijuana, that goes for everything like that. The closest that I've come to going, okay, I can understand that, is sometimes, like, really old school pipes look really nice.
Okay.
But that's just a reason to buy a pipe, not a reason to actually
Smoke
put
it.
tobacco in it and smoke it. I just want the accessory. It looks nice.
No, I went off cigarettes when I was like 5 because my dad was a smoker. So I said, "What's that taste like?" So he let me try it, and I was like, "Well, I'm never doing that again."
That's probably the best way around.
And I never did. I've never touched a cigarette since that one puff when I was like a little kid.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I've just never got the appeal of it. And what do you want me to take back? The fact that there's a stoner laugh that everyone's laugh defaults into, given a long enough time frame when it comes to smoking pot? I will not retract that because it exists. Everyone knows what you mean when you say stoner laugh.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I did enjoy most other parts of my trip around Europe, but yeah, getting high was not ironically not a highlight.
I have a flask.
I have several flasks in several different styles, and at one point, I accidentally burned one of the emblems on one of my flasks into my hand for a short period of time.
A flask has such a... It's such a small design. Like, it almost seems pointless.
Oh, it depends. You can get really big flasks.
Well, the one I have is like really thin and really, like, well, it's not small. It's about the size of my hand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's say about an inch, maybe an inch, 3/4 of an inch wide.
Mm-hmm.
It's I've just never had to use it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've had some small flasks. I've had some large flasks. I get their use, and I enjoy the look of them.
As I have heard Camel talk when he was high and laugh, he does not have he doesn't have a stereotypical stoner laugh.
Yeah. Neither of you have the stoner laugh yet when it comes to you and Adam. But even though you don't currently have it, you know at least a handful of stoners that do. Don't you fucking deny it.
Oh, my friend here in town? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. It's just something that happens to a lot of people when they smoke a sufficient quantity of pot. They get the stoner laugh, which is evidence that it's doing something to your fucking brain, otherwise you wouldn't all get the same goddamn laugh.
the greater good.
So we've gotten 2 people worked up into a rage in one stream. We're doing well.
Yep. And both of them, it was my fault.
Yes.
Well, no, I'll say that the second one was my fault. The first one is just because Jack has some sort of vendetta against knowledge.
And I think we can all share credit for the Gunsky one.
True.
I think you, me, Frosted, this is like a team effort.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not mad. I just felt like using caps tonight.
And rather than using caps, you could click on the link that you've been sent and join in. Also, you can deny it, but can you deny it honestly? I don't believe that you can. Sure, you can say the words, I deny it, but honestly, nah. You know someone with a stoner laugh. Like I said, though, when it comes to celebrating St. Paddy's Day, I'm having a nice little meal of corned beef and coal cannon. Do you guys know what coal cannon is?
Welcome to
Nope.
Coal cannon is the creamiest, most amazing mashed potatoes with green onion and cabbage mashed in.
Fair enough. So,
And hello, Camel.
Camel.
Giving us a silent treatment, or he got in so that he could continue typing in all caps.
There you go.
Which I'm slightly hoping that that's what happened, that he's furiously slapping away at the keyboard.
So, Sanguine, I do have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain the difference between color and color?
Oh,
with
the
the
reason why the American doesn't have a U and while the English does?
Yes.
That is a very simple explanation. You had to pay by the letter when you were getting something printed. So,
how dare you, sir?
How dare I what?
I actually don't know anybody that has that stoner laugh. And I've known plenty of potheads.
Are you sure that you just weren't so high you didn't realize that they had the laugh?
I'm fairly confident. If I knew somebody that laughed in a retarded manner like Seth Rogen, they would never live it down, Sanguine. I would make it my life's mission to remind them how retarded their laugh sounded morning, noon, and night.
I have met so many stoners that have that laugh.
It must be a regional thing, because I don't hear anything close to that in at least my neck of the woods.
I have met 3 in my area alone.
Well, Seth Rogen is a Canadian, so maybe it has something to do with that colder weather you Northerners have.
Hey, I knew them in Virginia as well.
I'm pretty sure Virginia is still colder than Oklahoma, so climate could be a factor here.
But yeah, the explanation for why there's the U in English spelling and not in American spelling is the English spelling is the more correct older spelling. The American spelling was you had to pay by the letter in order to get things published. So Americans started looking at letters that they could go, do we really need this? Let's get rid of this one. And the U's were dropped from everything.
I suppose that would save money.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I didn't know that.
So why do Americans get the last letter of the alphabet wrong?
Because we're right.
Because again, it's much
Because Z
quicker to
is a
say
name,
Z
not
than
a
Z.
letter.
What did Sanguine say?
Because again, it is much quicker for Z than Z.
But they're both 3 letters. Like, it doesn't make sense.
Hey, Jack.
Like,
No. No, Z is just a Z.
Motherfuckers. You motherfuckers. You motherfuckers.
So
I'm not your
Do,
father.
do you want to explain your grievance there, Jack?
You know what you did. You all know what you did.
I just got here. I don't know what's going on.
Something which you did not know.
Camel didn't do anything, but the rest of you know what you did.
I didn't do anything.
I elucidated and illuminated a topic which you were ignorant of.
No, but back
I'm sorry, was that a re?
because I'm
That was
legitimate-
like the weakest re in existence.
Wasn't
That's why
a
I was asking.
It wasn't
I was
a re. It
Is
was
that when you get so soy-based that you can no longer generate the force for a full re?
It was not a re. It was a
I don't know.
It's
That's
like
pretty
a-
close to a re.
It's like a horse.
Yeah, it was closer to a nay than a re.
Are you going to start counting now too, Jack?
What? Counting what?
You have to know
Never
numbers to
mind.
count.
But
I
for
don't
real,
think
why did America change Z to Z? Like,
Because Z is a name, not a letter. That's why.
no, but I want the actual answer, not the
Because it's silly to have a letter end with another letter.
fuck are you talking about?
That doesn't work for any of the letters.
All right, let's
I
see
mean,
here.
A and B. I mean, it's usually if when you pronounce it, it's just the letter and like a vowel sound next to it.
It's a double E for a lot of them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And then that doesn't work for H.
yeah, it doesn't work for H.
but it does. Like, you're saving money because you drop letters doesn't work because ZEE and ZED are both the same length.
Well, and then like H and H is just a. It's just.
Well, H
regional.
is just retarded. And David Mitchell has plenty to say about that pronunciation.
No, but what is the actual reason? I think Sanguine might be the only one who actually got an
And
answer.
I'm trying to look into it right now because I haven't looked into that. I know the origin of why Z is pronounced as Z for the English because it's a like third degree translation of zeta
Yeah,
because it went from zeta to Old French. It was ZEDE, which would be pronounced Z effectively, and that just got transformed.
There you go.
to
There you go,
Z
Terry. Blame the
itself.
French.
well,
It's an American pastime. Congratulations. Welcome to the club.
no, that
that's-
explains why the English say Z. It doesn't explain why the Americans changed it again.
Yep, and that's what I'm currently
Because
trying
fuck the
to look
French.
into.
I mean, right?
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what's shown here.
They sold us a bunch of
Z
swampland in the middle of the country, and we said, fuck those guys. It's Z.
Hey, careful. I mean that swampland's your birthright at this point.
I mean, I really don't want to go back to Mississippi, Jack. So fuck it.
It's a better birthright than a watch that's been up someone's ass.
I'm sorry, what?
The Pulp Fiction where the watch was up his ass, and he's like, "I'm not going to let."
Oh,
Oh yeah.
Someone take your birthright.
gotcha. Okay.
Okay, so the reason why is apparently in the 1500s through 1700s, there was a competition
A
between
magical land
both pronunciations of
called
Z and
Z-land.
Z.
Did you shut up?
And Z ended up winning out mainly because it rhymed with so many other letters. So
Oh, okay.
people liked the sound of it because it then rhymed with B, C, D, E, P, and all those. Whereas no other letter ended with ed. So
Right.
as there was a competition between the Z and Z, Z became more popular due to its following form of other letters.
So
Okay.
when kindergartners learn the alphabet song in Australia, is it the same as the Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, except for you just end it with Z?
Yes.
Oh,
So you end
So
it
then-
with a non-rhyming letter.
Yeah.
just make it
You-
incredibly awkward.
That's just
Do you
That's
still
just
keep it
retarded.
as next time will you sing with me as the
Um.
very last line?
Oh yeah, X, Y, and Z. I don't know. I haven't sung the song since I was like 6.
Because it sounds like in order to keep the rhyme, you'd need to change that last portion into something like, now that's what I fucking said. And then you'd be
No,
gold.
now I know my ABCs. Yeah, next time won't you sing with me? I think
now
it's
I
the
know
same.
my AB says. Next time, won't you sing with Med?
Whatever. That's dumb. But no. But I think the only difference is we changed the Z back to Z because that's how we pronounce the letter. But everything else about the song is exactly the same.
Also, I do have to say, I think that is the most disgusted sounding I've ever heard Terry.
Yeah, you sounded genuinely frustrated.
You
Well,
sounded as offended as if you had just walked in upon Jack defiling your mother.
She's a grown woman. She can make her own decisions.
Okay, apparently more upset with what he did than if Jack actively defiling your mother.
You can have sex with his mother, but you can't say Z.
No, that wasn't the issue. It was, you can have sex with his mother, but don't you dare say XYZ. Next time, won't you sing with Med? That
Well,
is
that's
a
just
line
stupid.
too far.
No, I mean, I was frustrated because I was trying to listen to Sanguine's explanation, and you kept interrupting.
And I kept interrupting because I don't want to know.
But I do, and I asked the question.
Yeah, that interested parties do want to know.
Jack heard the phrase "ignorance is bliss" and has decided to live by it as
It's not that I don't want
draconianly
to
as he
know
possibly
information. It's that
Yes,
the
it
way
is,
you
Jack.
present information is so fucking long. It's so long and drawn out and dull, hopelessly dull.
We could see about go getting Teal Deer and see if he can do it for you.
Right, did you just say that I took way too long in explaining things that actually have a complex history when it took you that long to say, I find it dull, man?
You
Is
maniacs!
that really what just fucking happened?
You blew it up.
I think he was quoting Monty Python. That sounded
Yeah,
like
I was quoting Monty Python, the account.
Very poorly.
What's it called?
the chartered accountant, where he wants to be a
Chartered
lion tamer.
Yeah, it was still just very poorly done. So it
Well,
It
you
was.
knew
rather
what I was
than
referencing, so fuck off.
rather than seeming like a reference to Monty Python, it seemed more like someone badly reenacting that fantastically long death from the Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie.
I'm sorry, but I'm not a teenage girl, so I don't know what you're referencing.
That just means
Okay, I'm
they're
going to side with Sanguine just
uncultured.
because you haven't seen Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Okay, I'm going to
just
uncultured.
because you haven't seen Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah.
The TV show,
How can you
the
not?
TV show or the movie?
How can you not? The movie. He just said the
Okay.
long death scene from the movie.
Okay,
How
never
can you not know that Paul Rubin masterpiece of acting that is the death scene? I mean, it was so believable.
I mean, he won an Oscar for that, right?
It was fantastic. It just took forever.
I forget, was that pre or post
Getting in
theater incident?
I think that was
Pretty sure
pre.
That was after, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think
I love how it was during, and that's what the sound was.
I think it was after, because wasn't his "this is crack cocaine" right after, and that was part of his sentencing?
Oh, when he was dressed up like Pee Wee Herman talking about crack cocaine?
Explaining by crack cocaine, yes.
Yeah, I want to say he didn't do any more Pee Wee Herman stuff after the whole getting busted pulling pud.
91.
Until the Pee Wee Herman movie.
Yeah.
He was in 91 when he got booked.
Oh, so that was pre then. Because that movie came out in the 80s, I want to say.
Was charged with exposure of a sexual organ.
It was a porn theater. What did they think was going to happen in there?
Wait, it was a porn theater?
Yeah.
He was tucking it in the porn theater.
I mean, at a porn theater, you arrest a person who's not jerking their dick. They're the weird one.
Yeah. I mean, personally,
are you seriously saying you
do
just paid money, good American greenbacks, to go in there and actually watch the plot?
I mean, I wouldn't do
What kind of
it.
psychopath are you?
I wouldn't do it myself, but I mean, at the very least, it's not what I would call surprising. I didn't know that. I thought that he was like in a regular movie theater.
No, but like,
oh no,
yeah,
it would have been definitely.
I wouldn't go to a theater like that to begin with, but if I did, I would expect the people in there to be jerking off. That's kind of what it's for.
Also, I'm more concerned with the fact that apparently Jack wouldn't do it himself. So what he would do is he'd go into the porn theater, sit down next to someone and go, "Hey man, can I get a hand?"
No, I wouldn't go into the theater in the first place.
Sure, that's what you meant. Oh, Buffy was 93, so
wait, hold on. Why would I pay for something if I can get it for free?
We're
the
talking
camaraderie
90s
of
porn theaters.
Shared viewership.
And we're talking
you want to be involved in a weird mutual like masturbation orgy of a sort?
Or yeah, maybe you can.
I'm playing devil's advocate here. You couldn't pay me.
And again,
to go into an actual porn theater. No.
In modern day, why would you do that? We aren't
camaraderie.
Talking modern day. We're talking about fucking
the 90s.
Early 90s, late 80s. Internet porn is just a pipe dream.
Well, I wasn't alive then, so I don't need to answer that question for myself. I am grateful to live in the privacy of my own dwelling, where I can jerk off without people in the same vicinity as me.
I was really enjoying that awkward silence there at the end. I was wondering how long that was going to go.
Yeah. And Terry, I'm assuming by when Buffy died, you mean the second time.
Yeah, the one where she did the noble sacrifice to save humanity. Then the next season they just brought it back anyway.
Oh, see, Frost brings up team building exercise, man. That's a good good way to go. To look at the porn theater experience.
I do have to say, one of the best episodes of Buffy of all time, in my opinion, was after that second death.
I'm assuming you mean the singing one?
Yes. Once More with Feeling.
I've never watched a single episode of Buffy, so I'd much rather talk about porn theaters.
No, that was like the one good episode. Well, I won't say the one, but one of the better episodes after that point. But in terms of the actual story, I think Buffy sacrificing herself for the good of Sunnydale was like the perfect end to the series, and bringing her back just cheapened the moment.
I would suggest that
argument.
I would suggest that I have never seen Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but if it's anything like Joss Whedon's other directorial efforts, then I'm not interested even remotely.
That's fair. It is.
Do you not like Firefly?
I watched one episode of that, and I also watched what's the
Serenity.
which no I didn't watch that. What's the
Dr.
did he do the Avengers?
Blog? The Avengers, yeah, he did the Avengers first one, I think.
Yeah.
To channel my inner check your logic, Firefly is grossly overrated. It's a decent show, but people act like it's the single greatest TV show that has ever existed. It is nowhere near as good as its reputation.
Oh, no.
I thought it was an okay show. What I was really impressed by was the cast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, the cast was stacked.
I would watch that show just for, what's her face, Marina Baccarin, the space prostitute.
Yeah. And then you also had Gina Torres, too.
I think now it was my turn to trigger Frosted.
But no, I enjoyed Firefly, but there is no way it deserves the praise that it gets as being like this masterpiece. It just wasn't.
See, Firefly, if it had been allowed to run its course and end at a point where it had told its story, then I think that it would be in the same category as like Farscape, where it's a good sci-fi. It isn't a godly sci-fi, but it's a good sci-fi.
Right.
It's that it was ended before it was able to really even get the story going. So there were so many people that had ideas and dreams about where the show would go, and then those were all taken away. So it got deified due to that.
Yes, very much so.
I think that more shows should aspire to be good and not necessarily great. Because if you have a great TV show, there's very little flexibility allowed to you. Whereas if you have a good TV show, you can basically do whatever you want so long as you make it fun.
No, see, I think more people should learn the lesson from Fawlty Towers and not try and have a series that's going to last forever. Just say, look, 2 seasons, we can tell our story, get all the good jokes that we've got. After that, there's really no more comedy to mine from the premise. Let's end it and then go into something else. And I think that is a much better attitude than, hey, let's make a show that will still be churning out 30 years from now.
I mean, I can see the argument for both. I mean, yes, the shows, the American style of making a show until it dies, compared to the British style of having just a couple seasons where you basically present your idea to the audience and then end it.
Right.
I think that the American way, it doesn't leave you hanging so much. I mean, it's disappointing at the end, but you don't feel like you don't feel like the emptiness of having you don't get like you never get series blue balls is what I'm saying.
No, but I think John Cleese said you don't get diamonds the size of bricks, which is what he was saying when he's like, that's why he kept Fawlty Towers as short as he did, is because the longer you drag it out, there's going to be a drop in quality. There's no way to maintain that.
But is a drop in quality really that bad a thing in the grand scheme of things?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And
I don't know.
I think that what people need to remember and what people need to shoot for is neither what you were saying, Jack, nor quite what Terry was getting at. I think what they need to shoot for is get a good plot. Everything else can come after getting a good plot.
Sure. But I mean, I would make the point that the ones that were very short tend to be the ones that are best remembered and like loved.
Mhm.
Like everyone loves. I mean, Red Dwarf ruined it because they went way too long. But when there was only like the 6 seasons, everyone loved that show, and then they brought it back and then they dragged it through the mud. But like when it was just like 6 seasons, the last one was kind of shit. Everyone loved that show, and then you compare that to something that went on and on and on. Like people don't have that same fond remembrance of it.
I think that there is a sweet spot wherein you can notice that the writers are running out of ideas by the time they get to that point, but it's not so much that you feel that it's getting cut off early.
Well,
it's not so much that you feel it's dragging on far too long and it should have died a long time ago, like The Simpsons or something.
Which is why I'm saying that what they need to start with is a good plot. And then you go for as long as that plot requires and not one episode further.
I mean, look, Blackadder is another good one that only went for 4 seasons, and honestly, I wouldn't have wanted a 5th. I think they were starting to repeat themselves. You started to see the same jokes coming up, and I think a 5th season of Blackadder would have been awful. So I'm glad that they kept it at 4 episodes that everyone loves, rather than continuing it until people hated it and were sick of it.
And to my mind, the real strength of Blackadder was it did exactly what I just said. It had a really good plot, that it went as long as it needed, and it didn't go a single episode further.
Yes.
It went, this is the end. This is clearly the end, because this is where the story should end, and it stopped. What we have a problem with is we have either shows that start off with no fucking plot to begin with.
Sorry.
They're complete shit shows from the jump. Or we have shows that have a good plot to start, and then that plot is finished by like the 3rd, 4th, maybe 5th or 6th season, and now it's in its 12th season, and you're going, just fucking put it out of its misery, take it behind the fucking barn and old Yeller the son of a bitch.
I think that it's very easy to say, like, have a complete plot, a complete story arc, and end it right there. But the writing process and the way that these things are contracted out, I think, would make that sort of model very, very difficult. Because whenever you hear writers talk about, like, they always say the same thing. We never thought we were going to get a 2nd season. And so what they do is they throw everything at the wall during the 1st season, and then they get the sophomore slump for the 2nd season.
Well, I would say, like, there's a show called The Good Place, and the 1st season is excellent, and at the end of the 1st season, something happens that made me think, I have no idea how it's even possible to continue this story. And apparently the writers had no idea either, because every season after that was complete nonsense.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And you say that, well, it's difficult given how things are done. Well, then we're just doomed to shitty media, because all our suggestions are difficult due to how things are currently done.
Well, no, I think
it's really hard to get a plot going when, rather than hiring people based on skill, you're hiring people based on
genitals.
Ooh, this one is a trans black person. We don't have one of those yet. Shall we hire them? Yes.
I think that the best chance you have of getting a good show with a complete story arc is if the person is proven. For example, Breaking Bad was directed by...
How things are currently done, can't be done.
With what?
With how things are currently handled in the industry, can't be done.
Well, no, Breaking Bad. Vince Gilligan was a seasoned writer. He worked
Not
on the
a trans
X-Files.
black gay person.
But he was. This was a recent show, though.
But
I mean,
what does he do with his genitals? And
We're waiting
you say
there.
it's a recent show, but it's a show that started in the last crop of actual talent. Not a show that is current. There's a difference. Because Breaking Bad started... Let me quickly double check. I'm pretty sure it
It's
started...
probably like 2008 or something.
Yeah, I'm saying that it's a decade and a half ago. Let me quickly double check.
Clickety clack.
Breaking Bad, 2008. Yep.
Holy shit!
So-
That was just. I just guessed that out of thin air.
You're talking over a decade ago, nearly a decade and a half, which was what my guess was.
To a certain.
When you're talking that far back, yeah, that was an entirely different system. That's the reason why we had a lot of really good shows, because the hiring method was different then. They were hiring people based on talent, and they were also, because the people were based on talent, because the people were based on ability, they were also writing the story, and they were trying to get a good story that they knew when and where to end it. There were a lot of shows that they were doing at that time that were really damn good, are loved now, that they were looking at, okay, when does this need to end?
I think that these things come in waves. I think that this current trend of hiring people who check boxes, and like I mean like
Which then goes against,
because checking boxes is a long storied practice in Hollywood, but
which
I think
then goes against what you were just saying as a way of poo-pooing what I was saying.
I don't understand. What was I saying?
You were saying that, well, you can't have it be set up so that it's a good story that has a set end, because that's not how things are done. Well,
no,
you can't
I'm not.
have what
I'm
you're
saying that
because that's not how things are done, and now you're saying, well, it comes in
well,
waves.
hold
so
on,
how
this
things
is
are done
this is a
change.
false equivalence. The way that you're describing how things are done is a very recent practice. The way that I'm describing how things are done is basically as long as the television industry itself.
No, because we've had shows that have set out with, this is the story that we're telling. We told that story. We're out.
Yeah, but I'm saying that okay, fine. It does happen sometimes, but it's not as easy a process as you're making it out to be. It's not. Most of these people, they give a pitch, and if the pitch goes, they have their shot at making a TV series. So they throw everything at the wall during the during the first season, and then they have nothing left. That is generally how these things go. Yes, sometimes you get like an industry professional who's been in the business. They know that he's a commodity, and so they give him some leverage in order to carefully craft out a series. But that is not nearly as common.
This is where I will disagree with you, because all you have to do, and you see this with authors a lot, because authors don't know if they're going to get a second book in the series. New authors, when they write a book that is meant to be part of a series, they write it so that when you buy that book and you read that book, it's a self-contained story almost. There's hints about what's happening in the larger world. There's hints that there's other stories that are yet to be told within that world. But they make it so that the story is fairly contained within that book. It has the opening and it has the close. And you've had that with shows as well. Buffy is a fairly good example of that. Buffy, season 1, it's the Master. the master what needs to be defeated. It's this big bad. You need to defeat that. So end of the season, the master's defeated. Now, you know, because of how the world's set up, that there's more to this world. There's more stories that can be told in the Buffy universe. But it is still a contained story. So you're able to have that contained story for the first season where you're really trying to make your pitch that we're good shit, you want more of us, while also having a larger story that still has a set end. Where shows most often go wrong is they have a set end at one point and then they abandon it.
You are making a very poor comparison, I think, because a book is one story, or
which,
if it's
again, I went to a TV show as an example of the same premise. I used 2 examples.
A TV show is fundamentally one story per episode. Even in season-long arc TV shows, they have to divide that up into all the different plots of each episode.
Which matters not one jot against what my point was.
No, because writers experience burnout, is what I'm saying. You get burnout from writing that many stories.
That idea, I think, is damn near anathema to having any good series. If you're just going to say, well, you can't have good series because
I never
people
said you can't have
burnout.
good series. I never said that's not possible. I just said it's not. I'm saying it's not as easy. It's not as common as that.
Well,
It's not a commonplace.
I'm not
practice.
saying that it's common. I'm saying that this is what they should be shooting for. That this is what they should keep in mind. They should keep in mind we need a story that has a set end. Now, we're going to take this story up to that point, and then we aren't going to go any further. I'm saying that this should be the goal. I'm not saying that this has been done with every TV show. I'm not saying that it has been done with most TV shows. I'm not even saying that it has been done with a plurality.
I'm saying that the model itself for creating a television show makes what you are suggesting difficult. More difficult than the traditional practice.
And because it's difficult, it is not something to pursue.
Sure, you can pursue it, but it might not turn out the way you want it to. For starters,
No
you
one's
might not
asking
get
for it to turn out the way you want it to.
Well, if you're looking into an end result that, there's no way to there's no way to guarantee that everyone's going to like the story that you got going on.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Which is why I'm saying that when you have each season, if you're having a show that actually has an overarching plot, there's some shows that they don't need an overarching plot. The procedurals are notorious for this. You don't need an overarching arc for a season for a cop procedural, because what you're doing is, this is the crime that we're solving this day. Okay, let's solve this crime. Dun dun! You're done! Woo!
Oh, speaking of,
Those-
have you guys seen the new Law and Order?
No, I have not.
My
Have you?
God,
Is it as bad as I imagine it to be?
it's nothing. It's not like the original show at all.
Yep.
I'm not surprised at all.
And my number one complaint: there's not enough chime.
Okay.
Chime?
Law and Order is about the chime.
It
What's
doesn't
chime?
have the dun dun.
No,
Oh, the chime! I was like, what's it? What is chime?
the chime
is it a spread
pivotal
you put
part-
on toast?
The chime is the pivotal part of the show, and they pretty much did away with it.
Yeah. Well, that's like the theme song, isn't it?
Pretty much.
No, the theme song's more of like a bass line, pretty much.
Well, yeah, I mean
the whole chime thing. It's more. It's supposed to be like a gavel, like being struck twice.
Yeah, but it's supposed to be like pretty much the scene is over and we're on to the next scene. So and typically you have a minimum of 2. It's supposed to be a minimum of 2.
My major complaint is a lack of Jerry Orbach. So,
well, that might be a little bit difficult to remedy.
Well, yeah, unless Dick Wolf has mastered necromancy, don't call it fucking Law and Order.
Are you really going to doubt the power of someone named Dick Wolf?
I mean, he already moved on to Chicago, so why are they trying to sell some?
That guy must be like 80 now.
But yeah, what I was saying with shows is you have some shows that, they don't need an overarching plot. They are purely, this is what this episode's about. Episode's done. Next time we'll start over. And this episode will be like it never existed. You have other shows that they have a plot that sometimes some other adventure pops up in the middle of the overarching plot.
Filler.
And that happens in most shows that have an overarching plot. There's going to be a couple episodes, filler sometimes. Sometimes it's just not directly related to the plot. It's kind of a bit of an offshoot, but it is still somewhat connected. And it still matters that it happened when you rejoin the main story. It's just not going towards that main story's end goal.
It's ancillary to the main plot.
Vag Coyote. That's a good one.
It's a bracing story, I would say, where it bolsters the main story with additional things.
Yeah, ancillary.
I will say, watch Reacher.
Yep. And then you have... So, what I'm saying is that you should have a series plot that this is the end point. Then, yes, you should have the individual season plots. And the individual season plots should be fairly self-contained season plots that then build up into the overarching plot. Which I don't think is some ridiculous criteria. And yes, the episodes would each have subplots that build up into the season plot that then build up into the entire plot.
So basically you're saying that an entire show should be written out in advance.
Doesn't have to be written out in full. It has to be kind of modeled out to a certain degree, not necessarily written out in full, but you have to have okay, what's the start? The start is, let's take a thing from manga. So you have a bunch of different mangas. Let's go for World's Mightiest Disciple, Kenichi. In Kenichi, you start with the person who has no martial arts talent. He's just durable and stubborn as shit. The overall plot is that he's going to become a master of martial arts, and not just one martial art. He's going to become a master of several martial arts. So, in the first season of Kenichi, and in the first volume of Kenichi, it's, okay, how do you take him to start on this path? And it was Kenichi meets someone whose father runs this ridiculous dojo of martial arts masters. And he gets in good with this person, ends up signing on to the dojo, starts training. Boom. That's one bit right there. That's one episode in the anime. That's one section of the first volume. Then it starts building from there, and it takes each section as a part of the whole of that general idea, and it is going to end when he becomes that master. It is not going to continue on past there. So you build up towards that, and then once you reach the point where he's the master. He's beaten the person that becomes the big bad. It's done. There's nothing more. You don't continue on with that story because you've already told the story that needs telling.
You know, there is a very famous American TV show that started out with a partially formed overarching plot to the series. You may have heard of it. It was called Lost, and it ended terribly.
Yeah, because they completely threw out what they had as their plan, and they just kept it going, which they've said they did. So thank you for providing a perfect example for why I'm saying that it's important to come up with an overarching plot and stick to it by pointing out a show that came up with an overarching plot, started really good because it was sticking to it, and then abandoned it and was universally panned because of it.
I think that when they're like, okay, how are we going to end this? And they're just like, we'll think of something. Like,
that's a bad sign.
That's awful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. You need to have.
Well, no, they were sticking to a plot. It's just the plot wasn't going anywhere.
No, it is something that they've been very clear in interviews since.
They're full of shit.
Okay, so your interpretation that they were sticking to a plot that all of them deny that they had is the more true representation, rather than the people going, yeah, we kind of had a plot and then we threw it out and then we kind of winged it from there.
No, I think that they were winging it from the start. I think that their entire plot was just one giant winging it.
I think that show was just winging it from, like, the pilot.
I only ever saw the pilot, and that was years after, and I was bored to tears. So,
like I said, it seemed like to me, and it seemed like to a lot of people, and also this is what they said happened, where they started out and they had an idea of where they wanted to take it, and then they got rid of that idea.
Okay, so since I've never seen more than like the first episode, what was the plot of Lost? What like if you had to like elevator pitch that shit?
Oh, the overarching plot? There is none. The original plot was effectively there's a plane crash. People are left on a mysterious island. They have to figure out what's going on this mysterious island. You will get flashes of what happened before this and potentially events that might happen after this, but you'll get them at points where you aren't able to determine if it's before or after. But as the story goes on, they'll fit into the timeline as they figure out more about this island and either eventually die on the island or get off the island.
Assassin of the Grey is pointing out the tactic for writing plot elements that J.J. Abrams uses called the mystery box.
Oh yeah, that is absolute horseshit, and that is horseshit because there is no fucking plot.
Yeah, the mystery box, and correct me if I'm wrong, someone other than Sanguine. But
I'll still correct you, motherfucker. You need correcting.
But basically,
maybe if you weren't wrong as often as you are, you wouldn't need correcting as often.
Oh, what was that? The mystery box is basically you have a general theme running throughout it, and you just keep throwing in interesting elements, more and more questions as much as you possibly can, and you never really provide any answers, but what keeps the show going is the additional questions you're adding.
Yep, and Apache is amazing devil fruit. Apache Hopachai. Fuck yeah. Yeah, motherfucker, fantastic. Also, I can't remember the master's name, the karate master from that. Also complete goddamn badass. That show is just filled, and that manga is filled with amazing characters that I love, but yeah, the mystery box is just coming up with a theme. There is no plot. They're just trying to get across this theme, and they will throw out whatever is needed in order to preserve the theme, even if it makes no fucking sense in universe.
It's really an obnoxious. It
It
totally
is the antithesis of what I'm saying.
But it's really irritating because it really insults your audience's intelligence.
Yep. And like I said, it is the very antithesis of what I'm saying needs to be done. Because some of the things that he threw out as, ooh, interesting little thing. Ooh, aren't you curious about this? You could have actually made an interesting story about. Like, Snoke. Snoke is a perfect example. He was one of the main mystery box creations. Ooh, what's his backstory? You don't know his backstory. Oh, he's in charge of the First Order. He must be impressive. Oh, he's dead. Fuck you.
He's a giant fetus man.
Yeah.
Ooh.
That's complete bullshit. You could have made it interesting. You could have made it where he was potential. So one of the ideas that people were throwing out early when they were trying to figure out who the fuck Snoke was, some people were thinking, wait, is this Pelagius? Because Pelagius was the Emperor's master, and Darth Sidious his master, and then Darth Sidious killed him before he learned everything. Well, did he actually succeed in killing him? Did Pelagius just fuck off to the furthest reach of the universe, and then once the Emperor got dead, he decided, well, now's my fucking time, and come back in? That could have been an interesting story. You could build into that, make it an actual fucking story rather than just, look, it's a guy. Aren't you curious what this guy's history is? He's a guy.
In fairness, I don't think that Snoke was ever going to work. I think
you could have made Snoke work. There's a bunch of ways that you could have made Snoke work.
I think that the way that he was set up, he seemed like a very generic evil villain and didn't seem to have any depth whatsoever. And I think that any additional thing you tacked on would have just seemed like we came up with it after the fact.
No, that's mainly because they killed him so fucking quickly.
Yeah, I agree with you to the point. Had they not killed him, it would have been a completely different thing.
Yeah. It was because they killed him so quickly that he became just like, yeah, who the fuck cares what his backstory was? He got lightsabered through the side because he was retarded. Yeah. This makes no sense how he became the supreme leader of this shit. Why would I care where the fuck he came? He was taunting Jedis with a lightsaber pointed to his ribcage. And he didn't think any of them would turn it on?
Well, I remember sitting there at the movie theater because I was invited to this was the when I got disinvited to the Star Wars parties that a friend of mine had put on, and it got to that scene, and it turned. I'm like, okay, this could be interesting. And then he just killed him, and that was that. And I'm just like, and I just go, oh, fuck you. Like,
yeah.
And everyone's like, oh, that was awesome. I'm like, no, that was fucking stupid.
Yeah, they could have made Snoke an interesting character because you could have figured out how he came to power. Since the Emperor fell, and now you have... The Emperor was fighting against a rebellion. A small rebellion. And he was having trouble with it. With the entire force of the fucking Empire. All the other worlds behind him. And he lost. How the fuck do you end up with someone who gathers the remnants of the Empire and becomes such a threat that the free universe is now having problems against him. You could have built into this. You could have explained how this happened. You could have made it so that he was like some ridiculous strategist, and that was how it happened. You could have made it so that he was it's Pelagius and came to power again. You could have made it so that he was one of the Emperor's hidden...
It's Matthew McConaughey and Rain of Fire.
And it could have been awesome. But they just dropped the ball. They fucked the entire thing. Absolutely screwed the pooch on it. And it just became boring, nondescript, evil McBadman that you don't know anything about. And it just... You don't give a shit that you don't know anything about him, because they've proven how useless he is.
It is... McConaughey and Rain of Fire.
Mm-hmm.
Frosted Glass, our local Star Wars fuckboy in chat, says, I don't think you can blame the Snoke thing on JJ. Rian Johnson killed him off with no answers, making the sequels less interesting.
Oh yeah, I will absolutely agree with that. That JJ, I don't think is that great of a director. I don't think he would have done anything amazing. But I will freely say that he was bent over a barrel and rogered quite soundly by the fact that they passed it off to Johnson. And Johnson just decided, all these plot threads that I was handed that need a lot of work, but they could possibly work, I'm just going to sodomize their corpses.
He went Jodie Foster on him.
Yeah. He killed them stone dead, cutting every single plot line that he was given. And then he sodomized their corpses. And then cut a few additional holes into the bodies to fuck those too.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I'm kind of general topic. Finish your thought.
But that's what Rian Johnson did. Rian Johnson just set out to fuck everything that he was handed. He decided, or Rian Johnson is a guy, right? I always forget. Yeah. Okay. I always forget. I can't remember if Rian Johnson's a guy or Rian Johnson's a woman. Either way, fuck Rian Johnson. But Rian Johnson decided that they would just fuck over everything that they were given, whether it was a new plot thread or an old plot thread. Hey, we have the character of Luke Skywalker that everyone knows and has loved for fucking decades. Let's completely change the character of Luke Skywalker and just break Luke Skywalker's character so that now it is cheapened for everyone. Yay. Hey, we have the stated thing that Leia is potentially force sensitive, but there's been no training, so she wouldn't be able to use the force. Nope, fuck that. Mary Poppins her way back into the spaceship. Okay, so we have this complex world where all this information's been laid out. Well, we're just going to make this a capitalism bad story because
capitalism bad.
And we have these stated things that take place when you're dealing with hyperspeed. Well, we're going to change the rules to hyperspeed, despite those having been established for goddamn decades, and those really matter, because if it was possible to just hyperspeed a ship into another ship and fuck it up, what you would have is entire wars would be fought with droid piloted ships that are just large hunks of metal with a hyperspace drive slapped on them. Because that's all you would do. That is the only thing that you would do. You'd never build large armadas, because if you brought a large armada to a battle and some schmuck had a metal sled with fucking robots, they would be able to completely wipe out your armada in an instant.
To me, that sort of move kind of betrays the very genre that you're writing for.
Yep.
A similar one that I compare that sort of thing, like ramming a ship into another ship in a Star Wars movie, I compare that to like in Star Trek Nemesis, when Data needs to get onto another ship, he does so by opening a hole in the side of his ship and literally jumping from his ship to the other ship.
Yeah,
and
there's
I'm like,
ways.
That's not a Star Trek solution.
Yeah, there's ways that you could have ships ramming other ships and have it make sense, because yeah, that would be a fairly viable strategy in space combat. If you designed a ship to ram another ship, you could make that really fucking terrifying.
Oh, that would be cool. Like, imagine if you had like a TV show about like early spaceship warfare, and and half of it was kamikaze based. That would be badass.
Yeah, you have effectively the trireme of goddamn spaceships, where it just has this massive metal prow at the front of it, where a third of the ship is taken up by this metal prow that is just this giant wedge. And all you do is you slam that shit into another ship. Yeah, you could make that work. You would have to have the right design for a ship, and it couldn't be just, well, you got hyperspeed and hyperspeed fuck up everything. Yay! That doesn't work, because like I said, you suddenly make a sled with a robot on it and a hyperspeed drive, and you've won your war. Whereas if you make it the trireme, then it becomes interesting, and now you're going like, oh my god, if that ship is able to get close enough to ram that ship's fucked, and this is now actual strategy. Whereas the hyperspace thing is just horseshit, and what the fuck were you thinking? You broke the entire space combat system that has been established again for goddamn decades. That's what Rian Johnson did. Rian Johnson took everything that they were given and decided, I'm going to make it so that nothing will survive being handed to me.
You went Game of Thrones on it.
Yeah. He went Game of Thrones last season. Let's just fuck everything right the hell up. We've had this entire season we've had this entire show, which throughout the entire show has had a fairly strong premise of fuck the throne. The throne doesn't really goddamn matter when it's survival at stake. Now goddamn does it. But let's, instead of having that massive survival conflict be the mainstay of the season and be the most important thing of the season, let's instead completely throw that entire premise out the window and throne most important, fuck everything else. Fuck you.
You were saying, Jack?
What is with this new like cabal of really mediocre directors in Hollywood?
I can tell you exactly what it is.
Fine, go ahead.
What's your description? I can tell you if you'll be hired. What's your description? What do you like to stick your dick into? Do you have a dick? Is it a man dick or is it a girly dick? And what color's your skin tone?
Are you asking me, or is this your answer?
Both.
Well, I like to think I have a manly dick, but I don't know. Maybe I have a feminine penis.
Does it bench 350, bro?
But the problem is that now they're treating directors unlike in the past, when directors that were shown to be good directors were given more jobs and were allowed to create to a fair extent. rather than going for a meritocratic hiring process, instead they're treating them like goddamn Pokemon. And oh, this one's a black lesbian Jew. We don't have one of those. Let's get
the
this
thing
one.
is that directors like J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson and what's his name, Joss Whedon, you know, they're not on the progressive stack at all.
They push the right ideology, though, and if you've learned one thing in recent years, that one thing should have been, if you have the right politics, then you're given the green light. I mean, for fuck's sake, Trudeau can't remember how many times he's gone blackface.
But there's pictures every single time.
There's pictures all over the fucking place from different events. It isn't all the same event. It's different events. He does not know how many times that he's done blackface.
Voluntary pictures, too.
Yeah.
He posed for them.
That is perfectly fine because he has the right politics. And by the right politics, we mean the left politics. And then you have other people where probably the most egregious example, or the two most egregious examples that I can think of are, do you guys know the name of the two men that were responsible for really establishing the form of DNA?
Yes.
What's their name?
Well, if I told you, it
and
wouldn't
scientist.
be a secret.
Watson and Crick. Probably everyone knows the names when I say them that way.
Yeah, no, I've heard that.
So Watson and Crick, they did X-ray crystallography of the DNA double helix, were able to establish the way that DNA was assembled, and were able to get more information on DNA than anyone previous to them. So
Wasn't one of them on acid?
Potentially, I'm not sure. So Watson and Crick won ridiculous scientific accolades because they did something absolutely goddamn amazing scientifically. Crick ended up passing away. Watson is still alive to this day, if I remember correctly. And do you know what Watson's doing now? So he won medal after medal for his scientific advancement. He got all sorts of accolades for his scientific advancements. Did this man retire with honors and glory?
No.
No, he became a box on Jeopardy.
Yeah, he didn't retire with honors and glory because at one point he said that because intelligence, to his mind, is at least in a fair part genetically based, and because of the rates of famine and death in Africa and the falling IQ scores of Africa, he's rather dubious as to the future outcomes of the continent.
It's really unfortunate because the whole race and IQ question will never be answered. Ever.
It won't, because it won't be studied. And what he was saying...
There's always someone to study everything. But the thing is that there'll never be someone to study it for scientific purposes as opposed to for personal...
That's what I'm saying. That it won't be properly studied. So there's a way that you can interpret what he said that makes perfect sense. So the way that makes perfect sense to interpret what he said is that, so intelligence has a genetic component. Anyone disagree with that here? I'm taking that as a no. You all agree that two intelligent people have a child, that child's probably going to be intelligent. So that should be something that is okay. A lot of people will take umbrage with that because they want to say that DNA only affects everything from the neck down. not from the neck up for some reason. But that is something that is fairly backed up in science, that there is some genetic basis for DNA. So he said that due to the famines within Africa, so if someone undergoes chronic malnourishment, it has been demonstrated in IQ testing that chronic malnourishment depresses the IQ score. Makes some sense, because if you aren't able to get all the nutrients that your brain needs, your brain won't work quite right? So check off that box. That box makes sense. And due to the rate of deaths within Africa. So if intelligence is tracking to genetics to a certain degree, and there's a high death rate in Africa, that means that there's probably a high rate of people dying that had high IQs. If it tracks to genetics, then every person that has a high IQ that dies before passing that on reduces the probability of ending up with high IQs from that point on. Makes sense, right? So if you go through it that way, it makes a fair bit of sense. There's the least charitable form, which is he's saying black people have low IQs. So he's a racist. The problem is he made several comments after that of there are certain parts of Africa that he's fairly hopeful for. Like, I want to say it's Nigerians are ridiculously overrepresented in petrochems and medical fields. I want to say it's Nigerians. It might be one of the other neighboring countries, but it's one of the countries in that area. Are ridiculously overrepresented in the U.S. when it comes to petrochem engineers and medical fields. So he was hopeful for that section of Africa. He wasn't hopeful for the other parts. So he's just saying black people stupid, so racist. Doesn't quite work when he's pointing out another area where he's somewhat favorable and hopeful for what the outcome is going to be there. Because if it was just black people, then why the fuck would he be excluding Nigerians from the category of black people? If you haven't seen, Nigerians are very black. So
how black are they?
Ridiculously. If you see them in the middle of the night, the only way that you'll be able to tell is if their eyes are open and they're smiling. So,
or cops pulled him over.
He made those comments, and when he first made that comment, he was the head of a lab. He had a tenured professor position and a shit ton of honorary titles and a shit ton of other titles as well. So he said that. He immediately got backlash. He apologized. He lost his laboratory positions. He lost his tenured professor position. Entirely. He was effectively blackballed from working in labs. He reached a point in, I want to say it was 2013, 2014, where after devoting his entire life to science, he was so disgusted by how the field had reacted to his comments, despite his apology and his saying, I could have said what I was trying to say in a better manner. So allow me to withdraw what I said, and I will try to clarify. And that's where he kind of clarified in much the same way that I said there's a more generous interpretation of what he was saying. He said a very similar thing. He was still blackballed from laboratory positions, and in his disgust, he sold off the medals that he had received for his research into the structure of DNA.
Dude, that's fucking metal right there.
So he was still completely blackballed. in, I want to say it was like 2018, 2019. Either right before or right after, he had a rather severe accident that left him in a sniff in questionable mental state. He completely withdrew his apology. While he was in the sniff and in and out of consciousness, all of his honorary titles were withdrawn from him.
Man.
That's a fucked up situation.
Yeah.
Another really good example is Tim Hunt. Do you guys remember the story of Tim Hunt?
Was that the guy with the shirt?
No, that was a different guy. That's another good example. But Tim Hunt was the Nobel laureate biologist who was kind of bullshitting back and forth with a group of people, and they were making jokes. He was making jokes, and one of them was a woman, and he turned to the woman and said, "You see, there's three main problems with women in laboratories. You'll fall in love with them, they'll fall in love with you, and they'll always be crying."
I remember that one.
And it was clear from how he said it and when he said it that it was a joke. Tim Hunt has been blackballed from scientific labs. Again, a Nobel laureate that won in fucking science is not allowed in science labs because no one will hire him since he said that.
Well, nothing proves that women aren't a bunch of whiners, quite like a whole bunch of women whining about not being whiners.
Yeah. That's the shit that pisses me off. Because you have people that actually should have positions, but because they don't kowtow and parrot exactly what they want, they'll be blackballed. I can't remember how many times I've done blackface, and I will take every single opportunity I am given to dress up in some sort of traditional cultural garb that if anyone else did it, it would automatically be cultural appropriation, but I will do it every fucking time, and I will be on international media posing for pictures as I'm dressed up as a goddamn Hindi guru. But, well, it's important to be progressive. Still has his fucking position. Fuck you. It isn't about transgression because he's transgressed in ways that you've said. If someone transgresses, they need to lose their position. He hasn't. And you're still backing him. You're still supporting him. Fuck you, you lying cunt.
I think that perhaps the biggest problem we're going to have going forward is that all the honest people want to leave. I mean, when you say that...
Speaking of wanting to leave, I'm going to head out. Catch you guys.
Oh, sorry. I just realized what time it is.
We are way past where we need to be.
So
we're going to call it. So with parting thoughts, we'll start with Terry since he's out the door.
Yeah, my parting thought is goodbye.
Bye. Sorry about nattering on. So
Get out.
All right, Jack. Parting thoughts, Jack.
Bye.
Sanguine.
If you're passionate about something, make sure that you devour it. Don't let it devour you. And sorry for nattering on. I'd let it devour me.
And Camel.
What they said.
Yep.
All right, and I will close with Ricky Gervais saying, "Where there's a will, there's a relative."
Correct.
All right. All right, and on that, the zoo is closed. Have a good night.
Bye, guys.